Okay, so now that we've got our recording started for our second membership call, Joey, if you want to kick us off on the recap from our last one.
We'll do it live.
Live.
Yeah, so I shared that link that details some of the tactical things that we can start approaching in the coming year. But wanted to talk a little bit about why we're coming on some of these things here. So at a high level, through the last year, we've taken on a bunch of initiatives that are all sort of within the focus of making the network more sustainable, making the network more usable, and then sort of through doing all of this, returning to some of the first principles of how the network was operating when we first, most of us probably on this call got involved with it. So we remember setting up our first hotspots and the sort of joys along with that experience. On the front, through the last year, we've seen some really great strides. The Solana migration, of course, was a huge success. We've deployed infrastructure for the Helium network. There's been improvements to the Helium packet router. Just this week or last week, I guess, we're seeing the gateway metadata being passed along with all of the payloads, bringing additional functionality for LNS operators. Data-only hotspots have been reintroduced to the network under this new infrastructure, and we've been seeing that being a great unlock for commercial deployers to onboard gateways or to migrate their existing deployments over to Helium. And then on the front of making the network a little bit easier to engage with, the wallet app has undergone significant changes in this past just couple months, really, bringing hotspot onboarding back into the wallet app natively, and then bringing additional analytics along the way. So I won't rehash everything that's in the doc that I shared, but there are some exciting things coming. We just sent out a HIP yesterday that offers greater educational and trial access for the Helium network. So we're excited to see the community sort of chew on that one a little bit and collect some feedback there. But yeah, tracking well into the next year.
Excellent. And then Brandon, I think that you kind of go right into our next. Actually, sorry, let me put the agenda here in for everybody right in chat. Brandon, if you want to jump in, talk a little bit around how we kind of really ramped up things on kind of comms, PR, and events, and maybe we can kind of get into our next agenda item around how we're thinking about events and promotion in 24.
Yeah, absolutely. Hello, everyone. Happy Thursday. We had a great 2023 with PR and comms. We had some great stories, some great progress, but we want to continue that momentum. And we want to tell more of your stories. We want to help build your brand. And we want to focus on driving more awareness for the Helium network, for the foundation, and for solution providers. And we can do that. We've been doing that, and I want to do more of it and tell those amazing stories through the products that you're building and the things that you're doing. We have all kinds of great stories, right? They're cost effective. Many of you are building things on the network that help save lives, help the environment. The list is frankly endless now that I'm digging deep and learning more and more about the products. So very, very exciting things. We have the resources and we have the tools. So excited to continue finding out those stories and having that, putting that offer out there to help build your brands through the end here of 2023, and certainly with that focus into 2024. So very exciting. Case studies, press releases, blog posts, any way we can highlight you and build you up. Let's do it. Let's work together. Events. Woohoo! Had a good year there too, and have a huge list planned for 2024. We want to know where you're going to be. We've got some great ideas on where we're going to be and hope that you'll be there too. Couple off the top of my head real quick that are on our radar. Embedded World in Germany, which is coming up in April. Smart Cities in New York. If you haven't seen it, we were planning to be there in 2023. They just announced the other day they are rescheduling for May of 2024. So that just came onto my radar. Let me know if you're going to be there. We can do all kinds of things together. IoT World is coming up as well. I believe that is, yes, Barcelona, and that is also in May, IoT World Congress. So lots of events are on our radar. We shared, again, don't want to rehash it, as Joey said, because I went over a big list and shared that list with you all on the last call. Don't want to rehash that again, but those are kind of just some highlights off the top of my head of what we're thinking and where we're doubling down with you all and investing in being in those places. But let us know where you're going to be in 2024. We're eager to wrap up our event plan and kind of finalize that. And in the spirit of co-marketing and building your brand and continuing that promotion and getting the word out about you all and the network and elevating those stories so that everyone can hear about us. We want to make sure that we're aligning ourselves with you and making sure that we're in the right places so that we can get maximum awareness for all of us. So any questions, any interest in partnering with us on all of those fronts, we're open to all of your ideas. You can hit us up as always at hello@helium.foundation or marketing@helium.foundation. We are there listening and answering to your emails. And that is all from me.
Excellent. Thank you, Brandon. And I think some of the stuff I just want to kind of highlight in there is, we really did shift our event strategy kind of in the back half of the year. And again, thinking about this for 24 is, what can we do to make sure we're elevating and creating more visibility for your businesses? How can we be the places that is going to help you grow, drive revenue on your side? For us, I think that we tell the best version of the Helium Network story, specifically through those solutions, through case-specific applications. So it's less about our name being front and center. It's much more about how we can talk about the things that everybody here is building, get those really good, highly visible speaking opportunities, do more promotion at different key events around the world, where really we want our members to be front and center. And then as a byproduct from that, talking about the benefits and what Helium is enabling is part of that conversation, but it's really all about growing your businesses. That's the idea behind membership. So we're really looking to nail down the rest of our event schedule for 24. Brandon mentioned a few that we're already pretty well locked in on, but we want to make sure we're in the places where you can drive growth for your businesses. So want to hear from you. And one thing I'm going to pop in right now, which kind of leads me to my next thing, is really around growth hurdles as well. So I'm putting a form in the chat right there. It's also in the agenda. And this is a kind of a questionnaire for prospective members in general. And there's a few different areas. One is, obviously feedback on events, but I think the other areas, where are you seeing friction in your process, or what is holding you back from potentially scaling more on the Helium Network? I want people to think about membership as effectively the strongest feedback loop in the ecosystem, where we can spend time with our most aligned stakeholders to think about whether it's technical improvements, things we can better do from a product perspective and a better customer end user experience, whether that's things on our end, whether it's things that we can do to help and advise for your business. But I think one of the most important things that we want to be able to do is around content, education. We're certainly doing a lot of advocacy work, which I can speak to, but it's much more around how we're continuing to grow the ecosystem, drive more development in general, and educate. So where you're seeing some of those points of friction, whether there is insufficient information that we can improve on docs, improve things on the website. Really think of membership as the strongest feedback loop where we can spend more time with the folks who are providing additional support for foundation operations. So don't want to spend too much of this call on the form itself. Please take time. Would really value the feedback there. It's going to inform on a lot around events, around our focus on content and communications, and where we can spend more time with you as members. So take a look there. Anything anybody wants to specifically discuss in the forum right now around kind of what you feel like are high priority growth hurdles? I'm happy to spend a few minutes on that if folks want. Whether you want to speak, jump in, pop something in chat. Otherwise, happy to do it a little bit more asynchronously, fill out that form, and we can always jump on a separate call there. But whenever we've got the space to discuss it as a group, always like to at least put the offer out.
Sorry, Scott, do we have this link in the email? Because I'm personally driving and I cannot open it right now from the chat.
Yeah, so everybody that registered for this call, we will follow up with the call recording, and I will send this form to everybody.
Thanks.
So just in case you don't catch it in the chat, we will get that all out as a reminder. As well as obviously want to make sure we're driving to people coming on and confirming as members, which we're super excited about. We've already got a number of organizations who are committed for 2024. But unless there's anything else specifically around that priority growth areas and hearing from perspective of the audience here. Okay, so the next thing I want to bring up is where we can drive more development from the community and growing our ecosystem in general. So thinking about things in terms of the grant program, and I'm really excited about starting to plan more hackathons for 24. And the way that I'm looking at this is, candidly, the grant budget was a little bit smaller in 2023. One way that we can increase the impact there is through something that's known as quadratic funding. I won't get too into the minutiae there. There's an organization called Cubic that does this on Solana that it's a way to kind of facilitate more of the community and other organizations that can contribute to bounties, contribute to grant projects where the foundation can anchor some of the funding on this and signal our interest in it, but in the idea of creating stronger incentives and more alignment from other stakeholders. That's one area that we're exploring where we can be more impactful from a grant side. Hackathons, this is one that I'll be totally candid. We can copy from Solana's playbook here, where I know that our focus is so much more on kind of the IoT applications and things that relate to the wireless side versus crypto. But I think that's something that Solana has done incredibly well, is really being relentless of putting a lot of, it's just the volume of hackathons, but also this idea of different streams. So for how that would apply to Helium, and the idea that we can be running hackathons that, one stream might be around IoT applications, another might be for DPIN building on Helium. The idea of other token incentivized projects that can be building on top of our network as an application. Kind of open source network tools and analytics could be something else as another stream. So the idea that you as an organization, you may be most interested in seeing more open source tools, dashboards, network analytics. You may want to contribute there, whether as a judge or financially to prize money. You might not be as interested in another application coming on that is not as interesting for your organization. So that's another area where I really am looking forward to us ramping up on that side for growth and expanding on development. So to the extent that you're interested, whether in participating, you just generally have ideas around it, can contribute to some of the incentives there. Again, if you can check out that form, there is some space for you to add your feedback and provide some comments there, because I think that it's been a very successful model for other ecosystems. It's something that we haven't done enough of, and a great way to drive a lot more growth, both on tools that can benefit solutions providers, as well as just seeing more activity on the network in general. Any questions there? Okay. So next thing is, we want to make sure we're keeping good company here. Brand reputation matters, who you associate with matters, not just for reputation, but also the idea that, how we sharing the work with other strong teams that ship good products, brands that really know how to tell a very compelling story and can speak to the Helium network or can kind of complement your business. So with respect to membership going forward, I really want to make this a broader membership initiative in general, which is why we're going to be one of our first actions in 24. We'll be standing up the first instance of a membership committee. The foundation employee, folks who are employed by the foundation, we're not unilaterally making the decisions going forward on who should be members. I want to be very mindful about the criteria that's required, what that process would look like as we evolve and this becomes a larger program. And I think that's very important for this first Genesis cohort of members to have a say in how we do that, how we define that criteria, and who helps to assess some of these new incoming members. I think the association with other organizations is very important here, both from reputation and sharing the workload. So to the extent that you're interested, again, there's a spot in that form, I think on the last page. I think it's about 4 or 5 page form, but it shouldn't take that long. There's short questions, but genuinely appreciate folks taking the time to put in their thoughts. And if you are willing and want to opt in to participate in that early membership committee, shouldn't be too much time out of your day, probably, 1 meeting a month, I would expect. So that basically covers it from our agenda. Really just want to talk about some of the things that we're thinking about, how we're going to be scaling the program. So much of it, from my perspective, is this first cohort is really going to define how we think about and grow the program in general. What is most important to you? What can we be doing with our resources to help you grow and build your business? Again, I think about that. It's product, it's communications, education, and what else we're doing to really expand the story of what Helium is enabling. One last thing I'll touch on is a few of us had a very exciting week in Washington last week. I know that doesn't apply as much for some of the international folks, but that's some of the things that we're doing in relation of we're going out, and the way we talk about Helium is through use cases. It's through the companies that are building on top of the network, and the people who have been really instrumental in helping us build that network from a supply side as well. So we want to make sure we're celebrating members in that case. Some of those things can trickle down to potential activations more at a local level, and that's where we want to continue to bring members in for those opportunities. So while we're looking at this of creating friendlier policy space for blockchain in the US and how we have that conversation abroad, the more opportunities we have with the public sector around smart cities initiatives, even smart agriculture came up in a few conversations. We want to think about how we can activate and bring in members to those things as those opportunities come up. So want to be driving that business for you and make sure we're spotlighting you. And if there's press to be had, celebrating you all as much as we possibly can. So that kind of is for the agenda. But we've got time for Q&A. So whether you want to pop it in chat or just jump in on voice, what can we answer for folks? I'm just taking it by the silence that I've answered all of your questions, and you're all excited to come on and join the membership program, which is great. How are some of the roaming partnerships? So, Joe, I hate to pick on you. I know that you have been in touch with one of the partners, at least, where we've kind of made some solutions around the technical side of the house.
Yeah.
If you want to speak to
Well,
that
there-
a little bit, at least.
There's kind of two sides to this question. One is existing roaming users, and then of course we're always trying to bring on new roaming users. So for those that have been paying closer attention, the roaming console that was hosted by Nova Labs is being shut down. So all of the existing roaming operators are moving to their own OUIs on the Helium network. So they will be distinctly responsible for their own data credits, et cetera, et cetera. And then as part of this move, there's been some sort of technical requirements that they've needed to make those migrations successful. So on the foundation side, we've stood up an API that serves hotspot inventory, which lets some of these roaming operators that are needing that data to easily query that. And that's actually live now. And we've sort of been beta testing that with a couple of these folks. And they've been, incredibly excited to work with us on that. So that's been a nice thing to see. So that process is ongoing, and that's looking good. And we're trying to be as high touch as possible to make sure that that's a seamless process for them. Activities sort of finalized their direction. The roaming hub will support Helium, so that unlocks further roaming partners in that ecosystem. We've been talking with a handful of folks that are excited to unlock that on the activity side of things. That integration will be uplink only, so that'll be uplinks and joins. Downlinks will not be supported there initially. And we've been talking with Alper and the rest of the activity team to find a path forward there. And then we continue to talk to folks, whether they are large or small net ID holders, to give them the best insight in terms of what it looks like to migrate or to leverage Helium. And so a bunch of those are ongoing conversations. So I won't name names, but there's a small handful of folks that we are having ongoing discussions with. Brian, I will dig up a staging link to documentation. It's going to be a little bit out of date, I think. But I'll drop that in the chat here so you can poke around, but feel free to shoot me a message if you have direct questions about that.
Thanks, Joey. And take, by the way, I think that's probably more of a Nova question, Joey, unless you know about the dedicated sunset date being posted.
It's this year. So
more of a no, and it's not as much
Yeah.
of a membership thing, but like, yeah, I mean, I think that might be a Nova thing, so we can try to chase that down.
yeah, I forget the exact day, so I'm not gonna make one up, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's coming right up. Oh, today. Thanks, Brian.
Yep. Anything else? And again, I'll follow up with everybody on email with link to that form for folks who are on mobile right now. And then any questions, if you want to connect with me directly, I'm more than happy to set up time in the next couple of weeks to chat anything else around kind of member benefits, what the program's going to look like, if you've got like very specific questions you want to dig into that's more relevant for your organization. So is this another one that sorry, I keep throwing the as far as potential network users to check the coverage using their address?
Oh boy, do I have fun stuff coming there.
I was saying.
Sorry,
I'm
I'm
still
still
gonna
trying
get
to dig
into it.
up this thing for Brian. I'm going to talk through this as I dig through GitHub here, but on the Novolab side, the folks working on proof of coverage did some, frankly, really, really cool work around modeling coverage. So they took the Longley-Rice modeling equation for determining coverage of a wireless network or a wireless device. And this models coverage based on the, boy, this is probably way too in the weeds. Apologies. It's modeled based on a space shuttle topology mission, the SRTM. And so you get a pretty good understanding of coverage for a gateway based on the terrain that's around it. And that's exactly what we want to be thinking about when we think about modeling coverage, is how does it interact with the physical environment around it based on the antenna gain, the elevation, things like that. And so the really cool thing is they wrote an incredibly optimized version of this model that used to take several minutes to run sometimes on fairly high powered machines. They work that down to 100 milliseconds per hotspot. And so the incredible outcome here is now we have this opportunity to run modeled coverage for every single active gateway on the network on a many times a day basis if we wanted to. We'll probably run this sort of once a day. And so what that allows us is to create a coverage map of helium that shows us all of the gateways, all of the signal strengths that we can expect for those gateways, the spreading factors that should be successful in those areas, and the redundancy of gateways covering a specific area. So we are coming up, and we should be seeing this in the next couple of months. We're coming up on a really robust story of showing coverage for the Helium network, the IoT network, well, and the mobile network, using this model data. And then there's some really cool opportunities for that data to be further informed by the efforts of the mapper community and other things like that. So yeah, keep an eye out for that. That is something that I'm going to be chasing because I really want to see that for everybody.
Thank you, Joey. And Miroslav, yeah, hopefully that a little bit cleared up from Joey's answer. Anything else from the group?
And I just dropped that draft docs link in the chat. Big asterisks around draft because we've been sort of actively changing things, and I don't think we've gotten back to this draft just yet. But if you have questions, hit me up. I've written a bunch of random node scripts that do funny things with it. So if you want to try some geo polygons or regional queries or things like that, let me know.
All right. If there's nothing else, I'll follow up with everybody on email. We'll also drop my Calendly in, so if anybody wants to grab one-on-one time, I'm totally happy to make myself available. Talk a little bit more about the structure of the program. But it being December and holidays coming up, I expect everybody is using every hour of the day as much as they can. So if there are no more questions, I will catch you all online or in a one-on-one separate meeting. But thank you all for joining today. Really appreciate it and super excited for what's coming in 24. Let's keep building. Thanks all. Take care.